We're gonna make the dough for this sfogliatelle. Cooking with Nadia. That's we're gonna make the dough. 3 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt is in here right now. Not packed flour, make sure the flour is loose because then you have more than 3 cups. So this is what we're gonna do now. Put it in here, we throw that in here. I use the paddle mixer first. The paddle just to start to get it incorporated, then I'll move over to the dough hook. So that's on. 3/4 of a cup of warm water. Put in 3/4 of a cup of warm water. And now we're just gonna let that spin around a little bit until it starts to incorporate. Okay, so after it's all sort of mixed together and the flour and the water's all incorporated, I'm gonna take it out of here. It's gonna be very dry, as you're going to see in a second. That's out. So now we're gonna dump it onto a nice dirty counter. And it's empty, so we got everything there. And now you're just gonna get it all together and squish it and make a ball of dough out of it. As much as you can, there. They say that knead it a little bit, so you wanna just push it together. And we're gonna be putting it through the pasta roller there as soon as I get this together. And it should be still a little moist, see, because it's sticking together a little bit. You don't want it to be too dry where it's just all powder. So if you did it with the right combination of flour and water, it should be okay. So now what we have to do is make it in small enough pieces that we can fit it through this pasta machine without breaking the pasta roller. Now, if you haven't broken your pasta roller yet, when you start making sfogliatelle, you most surely will break it. So what breaks is, on your pasta roller, it's this thing right here. It'll snap. You'll be going and everything, nothing's turning anymore. You think the machine's going, but this isn't turning. It's because that little thing in there snapped. So it used to look like this, one piece just like this. And then with too much tension, it snaps off like that. So then I have 2 pieces and it doesn't work. So now what I do is I have to take it off my pasta cutter. I have to open up my pasta cutter. I take these 2 screws off, take this cover off, and then I'm left with something that looks like this, with this in here, like that, and the other piece in there like that. So this looks like this, and I just pull this out of this one and move it into this one. But since this one's broken, I now only have 1 of these. And when that breaks, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So now, I gotta get this thin enough where I can start to push it through a pasta machine. So all I just wanna do is get this kind of thin. So when I put it through the machine, it doesn't break the machine, because if it's too thick, it'll make that thing break off. That thing's gonna snap off if it's too thick. When we first got our first pasta roller machine, they used to break, not all the time, but they would break, and then I would call up KitchenAid and tell them it broke, and they sent me a whole new thing. But I guess they got smarter, and they don't do that anymore. They make it so that thing breaks. Okay, so now I'm thin like this. That should be about good. And I'll set this up and go. Okay, got the roller machine on, set it to the widest setting, which is what, 0, it's 1. I usually come a little earlier than 1, because before 1 it sort of gets a little wider, it doesn't lock into place, but it's wider. So here's where you gotta be careful. If you hear your machine not being able to turn, you wanna shut it off pretty fast. So I got this, I'm gonna see what happens. It's gonna be going in. This is like kneading it, but we're going to be folding this in half and putting it back in again, and folding it in half and putting it back in again. That's what we're going to do about 15 times. So once it comes through once, we just pick the whole thing up, fold it on top of itself like that. So what I do is I'll pick it up, fold in this part here, I'll put in, and as soon as it starts to go in, I separate the top and I hold it like that, and I manually let it go together like that. So it slowly feeds together. So it doubles, and then once that all goes through, I'll do it again, then do it again, then do it again, do it 15 times. I'll show you one more time here. You fold it in half. Now these little pieces that came out, like these little pieces, I like this, put one there, I put one there, I put one there, one there. Don't want it to be too thick. Fold it in half, pick it up, put the seam right there, start it, widen it apart, and see those little pieces are going to get fed in there. Oop, not get too big, I hope. There we go, it's coming through, it's coming through. And that's it. And we're going to do that 15 times, and then we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so we've already had about 5, 6, or 7 passes. It's getting a lot smoother, which is what you're looking for. You're looking for it to get smoother. See, it's getting nice and smooth here. Before it was rough, now it's smooth. So by another 7 or 8 passes, and we're going to form this into a ball of dough, and then we'll put it in the refrigerator to rest. Okay, this should be the last pass. It's been, not exactly 15, it might be more, might have been less. You can go more if you want. It's really, really, really smooth now. That's what you're looking for. It's soft and smooth. It stretches a little bit. So it's really nice now. It's nice and soft. So now what we're going to do, say that's the last pass, okay? We're just going to fold it up a little bit. Sort of make it, we're going to make it into like a small tight ball. Now it's not going to go very easily because the folds don't want to unfold, you see, but they're going to stay folded up. But just get it looking like a ball anyway. Just push it down. It's kind of soft, but not like really soft. But there's like, you can see it's like, doesn't pop back, but it holds its shape. That's okay. So here we go. So we just get a little ball like that. Get some plastic wrap. And we're just going to wrap it up and put it in the refrigerator. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you about making the filling for the sfogliatelle, or sfogliatelle as the non-Italians like to call it. Okay, so now you're supposed to use some semolina, or you can use cream of wheat. It's pretty much the same thing. So I use cream of wheat for that. You're going to need that. You're going to need 2 egg yolks. You're going to need some vanilla, cinnamon, and this is 15 ounces of ricotta. It says a cup and a half, so a cup and a half would be 12 ounces, 15 ounces is fine. So this, and let's pull back, we need candied orange peel. So candied orange peel really makes it. So here, luckily, now Thanksgiving, you can buy this in the store, candied orange peel. So in this, because it's candied orange peel, so we look at ingredients, it has orange peel. See, that's great, because it's going to be candied orange peel. It has corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, citric acid, preserved with 1/10 of 1% of benzoate of soda, sorbic acid, and sulfur dioxide. So if you don't want anyone ever to eat your sfogliatelle, you will go buy this, and it looks so delicious. Look at that. Looks delicious. We don't use this. That's garbage. We don't use that. What we use is homemade candied orange peel. What we do is you get oranges, we get a bunch of oranges, we peel them down, and we start boiling them in water. And you just boil them in water until it starts to boil. You throw it in, and when the water's boiling, you drain the water out, put new water in, bring the water to a boil again. The same thing, take it out, put it in, you keep going.
And what are the ingredients in those oranges?
Going, and the ingredients here are orange peel. And corn, there is corn syrup in here, but we're going to wash the corn syrup off. We're just going to use orange peel. So it's orange peel and corn syrup and sugar. So that's what it's sitting here. I made this about a year ago. It's sitting in the freezer, so it freezes well. We need about 1/3 of a cup of this. So I'll just pull out some more, a couple more. But you can see it's just regular orange peel, and it's going to be candied because it was in sugar. So once I have about what I need, we'll get it and put it into a colander. Then from the colander, just going to rinse off all of the corn syrup, so we just have orange peel left. This is the part of the sfogliatelle that everybody says they always talk about is the orange in the sfogliatelle. You won't get that if you use those chunks of orange candy that you buy in the store. You really want to use candied orange peel. So there it is. So it's rinsed off now. Put it back on the cutting board. Then when I just get it all into sort of like a pile, somehow squish it up, squish it. And then I'm just going to start cutting it into little chunks. So, okay, and putting it back together again. Okay, so we're just going to chop this up into tiny little pieces. as small as I can get it, chopping it up myself. And that's what we're going to add when we're ready to add it. Okay, you can hit pause. Okay, so now for the filling, what we're going to do, we start off with 1 cup of water. Titusville water is the best because there's all those extra chemicals in it and poisons and stuff like that, so it has extra flavor. So that's what's really good for that. When we had gotten koi once, and the guy at the fish store made us swear that we wouldn't use Titusville water in the pond because he said that would kill the fish. Honestly, swear to God. Swear to God. Hand to God. Okay, now 1/2 cup of sugar. So I got a cup of water, 1/2 cup of sugar, and we're going to bring this to a boil. Okay, so I'm going to turn it on. And we're going to bring that to a boil. And once it comes to a boil, we'll start sifting in some of the semolina. Okay, one other thing you have to do for the ricotta. The ricotta, they don't want it to be chunky. They want it to be nice and not chunky, whatever that word is. Smooth, I guess it is. So we're going to take it out of here. The 15 ounces comes out into a strainer, like that. So it's in the strainer, and now we're going to try and push it through the strainer, like this, like so. So we're just going to push it and 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 push it. So we're going to strain the ricotta. They say you can also do this by putting it into a Cuisinart and letting it run for a while. But this is really what they want it to do. They just want it strained. So straining it, it's almost all out. Like that, there we go. So it's all strained out now. There's nothing on this side. Of course, it is all on this side. So we just scrape it off the bottom. But it's already come through the strainer, so there's no lumps. It's nice and smooth. So when we put it into our semolina mixture, it's going to be good. So there we go. It's empty. It's all in here now. Thank you very much.
Go.
Okay, so this comes to a boil. This is the water and the sugar. It's come to a boil, and it's boiled. I just took it off the heat a little bit because it was boiling a little too much, but it's coming to a boil now. So once that comes to a boil, you get your sifter and your 2/3 of a cup of semolina or cream of wheat, and we're going to sift it into here. The reason you're sifting it in is because you don't want it to get lumpy. So I let a little bit go in, hold it up, I don't shake it, and then I'll come down, I'll shake it a little bit, come back up, stir it a little bit more, shake it a little bit, stir it a little bit, and just keep going, oops. And you notice how it gets all over the stove, and the stove now is all filthy, and there's a reason for that. It's because we're actually cooking some food here, and that's what does it. So if we weren't actually cooking food, it would be nice and clean and shiny, and everything would be so wonderful. So we made shrimp fra diavolo last night, and we fra diavoloed the stove. So, and so once we get all of this in, this is going to go very quickly. The instructions say it's supposed to go for like a few minutes like this, but it won't. I mean, maybe if we lowered the heat some, it would be it would last longer, but you got to do it till just it's thick enough, because you don't want it so very thick. But if you've ever made cream of wheat, it starts thickening up pretty quick. Okay, so you can see it's really thick. But we want to cook it, so we do want it to cook for a little bit. We don't want it to get like cement, because the more it boils, the drier it gets, Okay, so this is about as far as I'm going to go with that. So now we have this, and all of this is going to go into there. All of this ricotta is going in there. There it is, there it is, there it is. Okay, and we're going to stir that in. Trying to keep it smooth so it doesn't get lumpy. Okay, so here we go. So we're all in. Looks nice. It's nice, homogeneous. It looks really nice. The color, I don't see any big giant white spots. I don't see any big giant brown spots. Okay, so that's just for a couple of minutes. So once it gets hot, then we're going to stir in some of the other ingredients. So we'll keep that. You don't want it to get. All right. So it's been a few minutes. This is now getting nice and it's getting hot. Tastes good. It's sweet. The farina is cooked. So now that we have this, we're going to shut the heat off. So eggs, 2 egg yolks in, stir it fast so we don't have scrambled eggs. Stir it really fast, really good, like that. Or else we just have eggs in there. We don't want eggs in there. And that's going to help to thicken it when we cook later on. When we cook it inside the sfogliatelle. So there is the egg yolks in there. Great. Candied orange peel. This is what we chopped up earlier. Well, I chopped it up. You didn't help very much. So the candied orange peel is in there. I'm going to stir that up. Nice and nice. Look at that. There we go. Now we're going to add some cinnamon. A quarter of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. If we can get that out of there. 1/4 of a teaspoon, and it goes. That's 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Stir that in. And we're going to do some vanilla extract. Okay, and vanilla. We have, I don't actually have 2 teaspoons on here. I only have 1 teaspoon on here, so I have to do it twice. I mean, if you're in fancy kitchens, you might have 2 teaspoons on there. So there's 1 teaspoon, there's 2 teaspoons. There we go. And now we stir that all together. And this is our filling for the sfogliatelles. Okay. Did you run out of time? Pie dish, a glass pie dish, Pyrex. So this is now going to go into there. Let me get one of these things. And let's get this all off of here like this. Okay. And this is always more than I ever need. I always have left over of this. So I should cut this recipe down because there's nothing you can do with it once it's left over. Usually you just throw it away. So half of this probably is all you need. So if you cut all this recipe I just gave you in half, but you'll see when we start filling the sfogliatelles how much is left over. So there it is. So this is going to cool down a little bit. I'm going to put plastic over the top so it doesn't harden on the top. And then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. Okay, so now we have to make what we have to brush on the dough, which makes it nice and crispy. So I have a stick of unsalted butter with a little bit of orange peel on it. And I need shortening. So I use this Crisco shortening. It's here. And I'm going to need 4 ounces, which is, what is 4 ounces? Who knows what 4 ounces is? It's like 1/4 of a cup, I would think. Wouldn't you think? 4 ounces is like 1/4 of a cup. That's what I'm thinking. 1/4 of a cup. So it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 1/4 of a cup because it's a half a stick. A half a stick of butter, I guess. So that's like 4 ounces of shortening goes in there. And I'm going to throw this in the microwave just to soften it up so I can stir it up a little bit or beat it, put it in the mixer and beat it up. So that's what we're doing. You can. Okay, I threw that in the microwave for 30 seconds just to soften it up. I don't want it to be melted. I don't want it to be melted butter or anything. I just want it to be softened so I can beat it. So it's going in. I put the paddle on, loosen it up. And we're just going to beat that until it gets mushy and nice and soft. And that's it. All right, so it's all mushied up like this. And there we go. So that's what it's going to look like. Just like that. And we're going to use that. We're going to spread that onto our dough once we roll it out, which will be very shortly. Thank you very much. Okay, it's been a couple of hours. The dough's come out of the refrigerator. I need a big, giant workspace here. Lucky I have a big counter, because you'll see why. I take some flour. I gently put it out on my counter just to keep the dough from sticking when I lay it out. Because we're going to lay out this nice flat sheets of dough, just like we're making pasta, but it's going to be big, long sheets of dough. So here we go. So I'm all floured. I'm going to take my dough. This part, Hooch loves this part because he stands underneath the pasta machine because little bits of dough fall on the ground. He just loves this part of this cooking part. Okay, so I'm going to cut like maybe a quarter of that. Okay, so I got a quarter of that. I'm going to push it down as flat as I can with my hands, because I want it to go through that machine and I don't want to break the machine. You can do this with a hand machine, but it's not as much fun. There we go. So put this on. It's on the 0 setting again. Yes. I'm going to pass it through 0 setting a few times. folding it in half. I want to get it as wide as the machine is what I'm trying to get it right now. Okay, so that's about as wide as the machine. So now I'm just going to keep passing it through without folding it now. About 4 times before I lower the, you see little bits of flour are falling on top of hooch. Okay, so 3 or 4 times just at that 0 level. No, scrambled. I don't need your nose in this food. Doesn't make it any better. All right, so I move it. So that was before 0. I just moved it to 0, which brought those things in a little bit. So I'm going to do 2 more times at 0. But now, from now on, I'm just going to keep lowering it 1 notch at a time. 2. I sort of keep it high so it doesn't stretch. I sort of hold it, so I feed it in, try to keep it straight going in. That's 2. We go to 3. We go to 4. You can stop when you get to 7. You can stop now. Okay, this is going to be my last pass. This is going to be on 7. Now my machine goes to 8, but I'm going to show you, you want to stretch this dough a little bit on the table, and if I go all the way to 8, I can't stretch it as much. I'll have a longer sheet, but I won't be able to stretch it to get a wider spool for my sleeve out, and I'll show you in a second. Okay, so this is 7. That's the end of 7. So now what I'm going to do is shut that off for a second. Come over here, lay this out on my floured surface. Normally I'd use a bigger piece to start with, that longer, but I want to give you an idea of how this even works. So now the sheet's there, so I'm going to get a brush, and I'm going to brush on the mixture onto this. So actually, maybe I'll stretch it first. Let me try to stretch it first. So here's how you stretch it. This is very important. So you're going to bring your fingers together in the center, and then slowly, gently pull out. From the center, I'm going to gently stretch it a little bit at a time. So I'm in the center here, my fingers are together. As you see, I'm stretching it, and then I grab the edges and pull it a little bit. So you see, I did stretch it a little bit. So then I move my fingers down, and I do it again. I move my fingers down, and I stretch it out again. So that's all I'm doing for one pass, is just give me a little bit of a stretch. From the center to the edges, center, grab the edges, center, grab the edges, center, grab the edges. So you see, I'm a little bit wider than I was before. Okay, so now I go back up to the top again. And now, again, I'm from the center, but now I'm just sort of pulling and shaking a little bit. I'm just going to pull, grab it on the edges, pull and shake. I don't want to rip it, and it might rip, and if it rips, it's not the end of the world, because when we roll it up, you won't even know it ripped. So there's that. So now I'd like to get it a little bit wider than that. So I'm going to go back up to the top again, and I'm going to go to the middle like I did originally. My fingers in the middle, pull, stretch, 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 stretch. So pull and stretch, pull and stretch, pull and stretch, pull and stretch. So everything's about the same width, okay? Except the very end is never going to get to the same width. Okay, so that's good for now. That's fine. Because we're going to stretch it a little bit as we go. Because it can still stretch. I mean, if you grab it by the edges and do it like this, up and down, see how it just stretches? That's how for strudel you would do stuff like that. You just sort of bang it, and its own weight stretches it. I'm not really pulling much. I'm just putting a little outward pressure as I'm shaking. Okay. So now we're going to take our butter mixture. Take our butter mixture, put some on your brush, and we're just going to butter this up as much as we can get. Try not to get too much on your work surface, because then this next piece of dough we put down is going to stick. So we'll try and get it just onto the surface of the dough. All right, so after it's stretched out, it's about doubled in size now, so we're about double the size. So we're going to start, just fold the very tip over just a little bit, and we're going to start rolling this up like we're rolling pieces of paper into a tight little bundle of papers, is really. So I'm just rolling it. And as I come to the edge, if the edge is not wide enough, as wide, I just pull the edge out and then roll it over that edge. See? And then here, see how it comes in a little bit? I'll just pull the edges out and then continue to roll. Just so I try and get an even roll. The edges, pull the edges out and roll. Pull the edges out, roll. I'm not pushing, I'm not making a tight roll. I'm just letting it roll its own weight. I'm not forcing it into a tight little cylinder. See, it's ripping a little bit, but that's all right. So, because it's on the edges, and the edges, usually we don't use the edges, we're gonna wind up cutting them off. Okay, and again, roll. And again, pull it out, roll. And pull it out a little bit more, and we're gonna roll. I'm gonna leave this little last piece just hanging out just like that. I'm gonna leave that here. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take another piece of dough, roll it out, make another long piece, and I'm gonna attach. You can end that. The edges. If it rips, don't worry about it. You just move your fingers and do it somewhere else, okay? Okay, once it's all stretched out, we get our butter mixture on our brush, and now we're just gonna butter the entire thing, top to bottom, as much as we can get on it. Try not to go off the edges, because that'll get your countertop all full of butter. Okay, and we do the whole thing. Okay, and we got the whole thing pretty much buttered up. If you don't get every minute bit, it's not the end of the world. Okay, next, we're gonna take our last roll, the first roll we did, or the previous roll to this roll, gonna attach it together just like that, just like a touch. Start rolling the last roll, and pull the sides out so that when you're rolling, it's the same size. Pull the sides out. Let it roll, pull the sides out, let it roll. See, just like that. Sides out, let it roll, all the way down to the bottom. Bottom of this roll, stretching it as we go. See, I ripped it, I'm not worried. We leave a little bit hanging over to attach the last piece to. So I'll lay that there until I roll out my last piece, and then we'll do this again. Okay, and this is the end of the third sheet that I had. So now we got 3 full sheets here. It's skinnier here than here only because this is stretched thinner. When I stretch it out, this side always seems to stretch a little thinner than this side. But that's it. So now we're going to take this, put it in some plastic wrap, and put it in the refrigerator just for it to, so the butter and the lard, or the shortening, start to firm up a little bit so we can then form our sfogliatelle. So I'm going to roll this up, and I'm going to lay this just like this in the refrigerator. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to cook this on a regular sheet pan. I'm going to put some parchment paper on it and cook it on parchment paper. Okay. So I got a little flat end here after cutting off the tips. Flatten out. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And you can just cook those if you want it just to be something flaky in the oven. I mean, yeah. So now when you have this, I go about 1/4 of an inch. Maybe that's a 1/2 inch. And I use a serrated knife, and I gently go down. I don't push. I just let the knife do the work. So then I have this. So you lay it down like this, and take your thumb from the center out. You push to the outside. So you want to you try to bend the edges of the dough outwards. So just gently touching it. You see how it's bending out a little bit? It looks like it's getting bigger. It's not really, but it looks like it is. So once you do that, then you pick it up with your thumb in the middle, and your thumb and finger, and I just sort of put a little bit of pressure and slowly pushing out and working my way up to the edge. So I'm unfolding the dough. So I start at the center, push my way out until I have like a little cone, just like this. And this is enough. This is gonna be a small sfogliatelle. So just like that, I have a little cone. I got a spoon, take a spoonful of the filling that we made. I put it right into the center and I push with there. And then just sort of squeeze it closed a little bit, and then you lay it down just like that. It doesn't have to be closed all the way. And that's a sfogliatelle. And then you keep doing that all the way through until you fill up the whole sheet. I'm putting this back in the refrigerator to firm it up a little bit more because it feels a little soft. All right, so we're still doing it now. It's lightly pressure. It's not like I'm not squashing this down. I'm just barely putting pressure on it, sliding to the outside. It widens it a little bit. Then I told you to stop on the inside, let's stop on the outside. You stop at the very edge and just sort of, you're doing like this. You're moving it apart a little bit, but not enough to unravel the whole thing. And I'm turning it as I do this. This section, turn it, turn it, turn it, turn it. Then I move a little closer to the center. And then I keep moving closer and closer to the center without unraveling the whole sfogliatelle until eventually I have a cone. And once I have a cone, I just hold the cone, take a scoop push it in, wipe it off the spoon like that, slowly, just gently close it, and then put it down. And then you do the next one. So one more. So cut, round it out, push it to the outside, widen it a little bit like that. Just widen it, when I'm widening it. From the outside, turning and touching, moving closer to the center as you do that. Every time you do it, you move a little bit closer to the center. And as you move closer to the center, it makes the cone, and the cone, it's making the cone. And then when you have a big enough cone that you can put something in, like this, I hold the cone, take a scoop of the filling, put it in, wipe it off the spoon, sort of almost close it, and lay it down. And that's it. And we'll finish it up. So towards the end of the roll, it's getting narrow and smaller so that they're not getting as big. So you see they're getting smaller here. Doesn't matter. Just roll it out as much as you can. Make as much of an indentation you can in it. And once you have that done, see it's just a very little one this time, so I'm going to use less of this. Not a full tape, I just put it in, so it's still in there, and it still looks fine. It's just a smaller one. So here I'll get maybe 2 more out of this, and then I'll show you how to butter it. Okay, that's good. Okay, so this is the last one right there. These are the 2 ends. I'm just going to throw them there, they'll cook. I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator, let them harden up a little bit more. Then after that's done, before we cook them, we're going to put some more butter on them. Then we're going to cook them in the oven, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Bye. Okay, then you take it out of the refrigerator and butter them all up with the leftover mixture that's in the thing. It should be at room temperature once they're real buttered. In the oven, 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. We'll see what happens next. Go. All right, so after about 20, 25 minutes, depending on how brown they are, I'm going to leave them in maybe another 5 minutes, get them a little browner, and then take them out. Okay, so normally this is 20 minutes. Sometimes it's only 15. This time it took 30 minutes to get that nice golden color on these guys. So these puppies are done. They're going to sit out here, they're going to cool down, and they'll be ready to eat.